Hello and welcome to my channel, I Want to Lose Gaming. Today I wanted to provide you guys with my day 0 initial impressions of the Elegy for the End, which is the new 5-star bow that was just released. So in case you're not aware of what it does, at level 90 it has 608 base attack, it has 55.1% energy recharge, and at refinement 1, it increases the elemental mastery of the character that has it equipped by 60, and then after hitting stuff with your elemental skill or your elemental burst, you gain a stack of whatever, and once you have 4 stacks, which can be triggered every 0.2 seconds, then you give your entire party 100 elemental mastery and 20% attack at refinement 1, and at refinement 5 everything doubles, so elemental mastery goes up to 200 for your party, and the increased attack goes up to 40% for your entire party. So I wanted to give my initial impressions of this weapon, and the first thing to note about this weapon is how easy it is for each of the bow users to activate. With my initial tests for Venti, it usually activates around 80 frames from when you switch to your new character. I have had it activate as high as 144 frames, so I'm not sure what happened there. But speaking of activation, you can see this little harp symbol appear when it activates the party buff. And the next character I tested this with is Amber. It seems like her burst can reliably apply this buff. And in this clip you can see that it activated at frame 97. And this is pretty useful. Child or even Mona, for example, you can first apply Pyro with her and then use Child's Burst for a quick boost in damage. The next character that I tried this out with is Diona, and for Diona I'd imagine that you would always use your hold E before you use her burst to get that shield up. So with her hold E and then with the burst following it, it took quite a long time at about 278 frames for this first test that I did, and that's actually a pretty long time, that's a bit over 4 seconds. The next character that I tested this with is Fischl. Fischl took 165 frames, assuming that her bird's hitbox actually hit the enemy. And of course there's going to be a large variance for different players and different situations, even with the exact same characters, because just stuff happens. I also tested this with Ganyu. I did 2 tests for Ganyu, and it took between 103 frames and 150 frames for Ganyu's burst to proc the Elegy buff, and this isn't particularly great because that means that you can't just Ganyu burst and then switch to Hu Tao and immediately burst. You generally have to wait a bit after you switch to Hu Tao and then use her E and then use her burst in order to actually gain the Elegy buff. So what are my opinions on this weapon banner? I actually think it's a terrible weapon banner overall, especially for free-to-play players. I do not recommend pulling on this weapon banner. The Elegy bow is really only useful for min-maxing your damage, and if you're at that stage in the game, then yes, it can be worth it. Like for example, players that use Amber Burst into Child Nuke to one-shot as many things as possible, this is a pretty decent weapon if you have that specific team composition. But keep in mind that those same amount of pulls could have been invested into characters or even into, let's say, the Staff of Homa banner, and you would have had a much higher returns on your investment for that. So to give you an idea of how much damage this increased for me, now of course everyone will have a different amount of increase for their accounts and their characters, but my Hu Tao with just Ganyu's burst applying cryo did 398,000 damage without the Elegy, as you can see in this clip. And in the next clip, Ganyu has the Elegy equipped, and Hu Tao did 444,000 damage with her burst. So if we look at this chart right here for my Hu Tao, I know my numbers are off by a little bit, but that's due to rounding errors with the math when you calculate it. But anyway, it's off by less than 1%. But here we can see in this chart that without Elegy, Hu Tao does 396. With Elegy at refinement 1, she does 443, which is an 11.7% increase. And with each additional refinement to the Elegy, she would be doing roughly a little under 3% additional damage per refinement. So by refinement 5, Hu Tao's burst would do about 23% more damage. And let's be honest, this is not really worth the amount of pulls it would require to get an Elegy even at refinement 1, more or less an Elegy at refinement 5, but certain whales will definitely pull for it to get it to refinement 5 for some min-maxing for very specific situations. So this is truly a whale weapon, if you would ask me. In terms of the other weapons on the weapon banner, we have the Skyward Blade. Honestly, the Skyward Blade is pretty bad right now. It's not the best in slot weapon for any character in the game, but you never know. Maybe in the future, a character will be released which can really capitalize on the benefits of the Skyward Blade. It's kind of like when the Amos bow was released, we all thought it was useless, but then Ganyu came around and you know what happened there, so yeah. As for the other weapons, the Wine and Song looks like a super interesting weapon. I have not actually tested it, but in theory, it might be useful for a character like Klee, who may use a couple normal attacks and then sprint and then use her charge attack to do a lot of damage. So you could use this with a Clay Xingqiu vape combo, or maybe against Cryo Slimes and Hydro Slimes. But personally, this weapon is not a weapon that I would recommend gunning for. And lastly, we have the Alley Flash. I haven't done any calculations for the Alley Flash, but it does have a very high base attack, which is good for Bennett. But honestly, I don't think this weapon banner is worth pulling, even for the Alley Flash as well. So yeah, there you go. That's my review of the weapon banner. I would say it is a do not pull unless you are a whale min-maxing for very specific scenarios. As always, thanks for watching, and I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Went to Lose, signing out.